Hello and welcome back. Thank you for joining me today. What we're going to discuss is a continuation of a recent video from a couple of days ago. So, as you're going back through the list of past videos, you won't have to scroll very far. The one that I'm specifically referencing is the relationship advice from the Course. In other words, relationship advice from the Holy Spirit. You don't have to scroll too far back. It was just a couple of videos ago, but I'd like to continue with the main idea of that. And that is the invitation that we all have to give over our relationships, all of our relationships, to the Holy Spirit. That is the invitation, which of course goes out to all of us all the time. And as students of the Course, we run across this message over and over again in different places and in so many different words. Same content. Of course, the content is the same. Give your entire experience over to the Holy Spirit. Relax as best you can. Relax and trust his guidance. Yeah. Sounds simple. Well, is simple, but that does not mean that we find it easy to do. So today we're going to talk about why, specifically what happens when you, in fact, make the choice to give a relationship, any relationship, over to the Holy Spirit. It's something that we resist. And well, if you're resisting that, if you find that, okay, well, that kind of makes sense. Okay, I sort of see where you're coming from on that, but I am really hesitant to do it now that it comes to it. That is a very common thing, very common. So if you're experiencing this push and pull, this conflict, you're absolutely not alone. We all go through this. Why? What we're undertaking here is a complete 180. It is. We're setting aside our entire worldview. Nothing less than that will do. You deserve nothing less. Yet the resistance to doing that is astronomical. Why? We have become not only accustomed to our way of seeing things, we've become attached to our way of seeing things. We've identified with our way of seeing things, and we've identified with it over and over and over again to the point where it appears to us concrete, physical, solid, and real. And we take it to be us. So anything that comes along, like A Course in Miracles or pixelated image on your screen, says that's, yeah, that's not you, and you know it deep down. I know you know, because we all do. So that message is not always going to be received with pleasure and joy. Is it? Is it? But you deserve nothing less than that. We all say we want somebody in life to give it to us straight, to get right to the point. We ask people, what's the bottom line? And we often do so in a hostile tone, as though they're completely wasting our time. Well, this course won't waste your time. You know that your continued adherence to the thought system of the world won't bring you what you really seek. Yeah, it could bring you money, could bring you a nice bottle of wine. Perhaps you have a lavish meal this afternoon or this evening, great relationship, happy marriage, tons of cash. None of that is eternal. Mm, truth, of course, right? We would readily acknowledge that. None of that's eternal. Not a single bit of that is the peace of God, which is beyond this world completely. Yet we're drawn to it, we're attracted to it, and really, you do know why. It's who you are, it's what you are, and we're drawn to ourself, capital S. We're drawn to God, quite naturally. It's why we're on the spiritual path. Now, you don't have to, and many spiritual traditions don't have a word or an equivalent of God. All right, so what? Right? We're all called to awaken. It is the Holy Spirit, our inner teacher, that's doing the calling. It's constant. And what has transpired for you is monumental. You've listened, so thank you. You've done it more than once. I'm certain, I'm absolutely certain of that, or you wouldn't be paying any attention to this. This video with this talking head, this pixelated image on your screen talking about truth, pointing to truth, would mean absolutely nothing to you. And well, you're saying maybe if you're saying to yourself, well, it doesn't mean anything right now. Well, there's a reason why you're here. Yeah. In each and every conversation, in each and every video, there is a message for you from your inner teacher. What exactly that's going to be, well, I don't know, but you will know, which is why I invite you to always stick around. All right. So when Cindy watches this, she's probably going to laugh, but she's just turned a fan on, a very loud fan, right behind me in the hallway. I can hear it perfectly. And if you hear a whirring sound, it's the fan. It's there for your forgiveness. Should it disturb you? And we'll see if Zoom's noise cancellation cancels that out. And it may. Kind of hope it does, because this mic is pretty sensitive. So, where were we? An aside, life coming up. We're invited to give our relationships over to the Holy Spirit. What we can expect is resistance. It's resistance from the ego. It's resistance from our continued attachment to and adherence to this sense of separation. We think we're individuals. We think we're individual human beings, self-sustaining survival units, and we don't trust our brother because we think he's going to get our stuff, right? So that's where we appear to find ourselves in the world, and along comes a thought system that aims to turn our current thought system right side up. We don't see things as they really are. And A Course in Miracles, should we choose to study and practice it, will help us to see things as they truly are. So the question becomes, okay, that sounds like a tall order. You deserve nothing less. Aren't you done wasting time and dithering? Only you can answer that question. And you could say, yeah, no, not really. I'm going to go back to the couch. Well, no problem, right? That's absolutely fine. And we all have the same choice in the present moment. And quite honestly, A Course in Miracles is just one of many spiritual traditions in the world, and they all lead to the same place. Every door opens onto God. They all lead to God in the end. And why can we say that? With 100% certainty, God is the only reality. So, yeah, quite naturally, all doors lead to Him. When you give a relationship, and this can be any relationship, over to the Holy Spirit, expect the resistance that comes directly from the ego. It's the ego that resists. Any relationship. So it could be a romantic partnership if you're married, or in a committed relationship. It could be that relationship. And you are, in fact, invited to give your relationship over to the Holy Spirit. I've done it, it's transformed it. Really transformed it. Now, this can occur in any context. It can be a friendship that you give over to the Holy Spirit. You give the relationship over to the Holy Spirit for His purposes. Yeah. Relationships with your kids or family members. It can be a business relationship. It can be the business itself, your career, your job, your work. Give it over to the Holy Spirit and watch it transform. They just give it over to Him. We're incredibly resistant to doing that. And once we do, the beginning is always the difficult part. And chapter 17, here, section 5 of the text, in fact, reassures us that it's the only part that's difficult. It really is. It's the only part of this that's difficult is when you first make the switch and you're getting used to it, you're possibly prone, and you may think, my God, this is really uncomfortable. What's going on here? I want things the way they were. Well, do you? That's the ego that wants you to go back to the way things were. It wants you to give up. We see this in the business context. We see it in relationships. And at this point, some of these relationships, in fact, end where someone decides that this instant moment, this beginning moment of conflict and, well, acclimating to a new reality is difficult. They decide that they can't do it or they don't want to do it. So they go back to some of the old relationships have ended. Plenty of relationships in the world end at this point. Business relationships and business endeavors, should you embark on one, end at this point. And this is the point of the initial difficulty, this getting used to giving over your relationships to the Holy Spirit. It's the only part that's difficult. This is a time for faith. Chapter 17, section 5, paragraph 6. It's a time for faith, italicized here in the course. Yeah, it is. Because you've cared enough and felt enough to give it over to the Holy Spirit. This is the time where we relax and trust and keep going. Keep extending love. In a business context, every email, every conversation, give over to the Holy Spirit. Give the whole thing over to the Holy Spirit and extend love. You could, in fact, be doing the exact same thing that you were doing before. And in fact, of course, we are, especially in the business world, where we don't just reinvent the wheel every 15 minutes because we feel like it. We keep doing the same tasks over and over again. The goal is peace, the peace of God. You'd be surprised what can happen when you do this and you keep going. You really can. I mean, I reference my own marriage all of the time in this because it really it's a good example. Give this relationship over to the Holy Spirit. See, here in the world, we think we have to be in control. Doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman or how old you are or what you do for a living, if anything. None of that actually matters. Right? We fear to give over control because we've become so conditioned to having to have it. Well, what happens when we try to do it? Well, we're not satisfied. We want to go back to our comfort zone, but your comfort zone was never comfortable. That's why you're on the spiritual path, because you know there's more to it than just ego comfort zone. So you may end up going back there. I mean, people do. I mean, you may. And then spirituality is always there because your inner teacher is always with you, calling you. The question in every moment for each and every one of us is, will we listen? So when you give your relationship over to the Holy Spirit, it's new. In the beginning, it's new. It's not something you've been used to doing. So it's natural, first of all, that you'll resist the doing it. And secondly, then the initial period of that, as you get reaccustomed to a holy relationship as opposed to an ego-driven relationship, and that's the language of the Course that the Course uses. When you get accustomed to this new relationship, it's difficult at first. Keep going. That's the message. It applies to spirituality as well as it does to our personal relationships and business. And you want to know why? It's all of life. Spirituality is all of life. It applies to every single facet and arena of life. It's universal. Part of the beauty of this course is it is universal. It's not a religion. It doesn't require you to do anything, but we're invited to do our part, which is give our entire experience over to the Holy Spirit and let it go to work in our mind calmly, peacefully, lovingly. Your inner teacher knows what you need with 100% certainty and knows what you are capable of handling in the moment. So that is why people in many spiritual traditions say you never get more than you can handle. That is so true. Now, again, if this is a conversation that's new to you, the Holy Spirit is you. It's part of you. The Holy Spirit is part of our mind. It's part of our mind. It speaks for God. It's known here in A Course in Miracles by many names, in fact. One of the most pronounced and one of the most common is the voice for God. Yeah, let the Holy Spirit decide for God for you, which it always does. Give your relationships over to the Holy Spirit, and the whole purpose of them changes. So that does mean that what shows up in this world changes too. I mean, you may have found that on the spiritual path, whatever tradition or traditions you've been working on in this lifetime. A great example of that is to think back to when you started your practice, whatever it is. There may have been some things that bothered you a lot, that perhaps caused a knee-jerk, instantaneous reaction full of invective and hate. Something that really made you mad. Now, fast forward, you've been practicing whatever it is for however much time you've been practicing it. Same thing happens. It's nothing. You don't react the same way. It's a very handy thing to think about. And I invite you to all think about those because we all have examples of that. People that used to annoy us after spiritual practice, however long, could be yesterday, could be 15 years ago, nothing. Things that used to bother you, you'll find in time no longer bother you. They're nothing. They don't bring you down. And it's very good because we all have days where we feel that resistance, where we feel the pull of the ego to go back to the way things were, the past. The past is gone. We have only the present moment, and our current choice really dictates everything. Holy Spirit or ego, light or dark, truth or illusion. So we're not giving over power and control to any outside force. The Holy Spirit is part of us. So if you've ever wondered what that is, well, it's part of our mind. It's one of those things that can sometimes seem kind of ephemeral and vague, and you may have wondered yourself, okay, what is that exactly? Yeah. So it's the beginning, the first part that is the only difficult part. From there, it becomes habitual. It becomes automatic. Forgiveness becomes automatic. Giving over your entire experience to your inner teacher becomes automatic, habitual. That's the point. And as you keep doing it, watch your world transform. All right. So questions are always most welcome. Nobody ever said this was shallow stuff. Yeah. I'll tell you, in tuning in to this series of videos, which is about A Course in Miracles, which presents A Course in Miracles, let's just agree to leave all the shallowness behind, shall we? And get right to it. That you deserve nothing less than that this course is correctly known as a direct approach. As mentioned earlier, there are many doors. So you have come upon this one, and perhaps you've entered and begun to walk the path. Along the way, questions are inevitable. So I certainly do invite those. If you've got questions, please feel free to leave them here. And understand that the questions that seem the most basic are the ones that we should all be asking. Because you never know. There could be somebody that is a 30-year veteran of this, that has been practicing this material for a long time, that may finally get an idea. They may finally see this proverbial light come on and get something years later because of a question that you asked. So you're positively impacting everything that lives in asking. So I do most definitely invite that. If you have not yet subscribed, please do that. We'd love to have you join us. Here's the subscription prompt. That's in the corner of your screen, the arrow there. Hit that, click that, join us. Several videos appear each week. And thank you to all of you who have recently joined here. Yeah. Well, you've come across this channel, this series of videos for a reason. So I invite you to connect with your inner teacher. I invite you to ask your inner teacher for guidance. That relationship can't possibly be understated, because when you start giving over your entire experience, your life, to your inner teacher for the purposes of healing the mind, for the goal of God, guess what happens? Yeah. Well, You won't see things the same way ever again. Welcome, and we'll see you soon.